That's awesome.
Well,
Hello,
hello, everybody.
welcome, welcome. We are so excited to have you. Let us know where you're joining us from in the chat. And Colton and I want to know, are you snow or no snow? Meaning, are you wearing short sleeves like me or a beautiful jumper like him or sweater? Let us know where you're joining us from. We're so excited to have you. And you can be wannabe snow, or if you want it, or wannabe no snow as well. We're an inclusive community. Of course, Alaska's got snow. Okay.
Very,
Chili, no snow. Got it. Love it. Welcome in, everybody. Take your time in the chat. Grab a snack and a beverage.
it's lunchtime Eastern, Lynn.
It is. It is. It's a late lunch Eastern. Yes.
Oh, Chelsea, our friend Chelsea.
Oh, freezing desert weather. Yeehaw.
Oh,
I
I love El Paso.
okay, raining and flooding is not good.
No, bad news.
Oh no, Kim, they're having fires in Malibu. That's not good. That's not good. Very cold, 1 degree Fahrenheit, Minnesota. My clients in Manitoba, it's -40. I don't even know how to, my brain doesn't process that. I just can't. Hi, Gina from Queens. Oh my gosh, lots of fun people here. It's snowing in Bend, Oregon.
Why is it not snowing in Indianapolis? I want
Mhm.
more snow.
I am back on my island and I'm staying here for a couple months. So if you want me to come there in the winter, it's hazard pay. So that's all I have to say about that. I don't own the clothing. I don't own the clothing. So it's not happening. Not happening. Oh, it's okay. Well, you guys choose to live there. I'm just saying. We are so excited and also petrified to bring you today's quarterly update. We try to do something every quarter that will help you all. And today, of course, we're talking about unspent money. For those of you who are doing Hanukkah and Christmas this year, or Kwanzaa, or whatever you're doing, I'm sure you don't have unspent funds. I've been watching videos of parents reading their kids' wish list for Christmas and having the one parent guess how much it the things cost. And I watched one the other day, and the mother was reading it to the father, and he's like, he wants a Balenciaga hoodie, and the guy was like, $15. Hoodies are $15, and she was like, $880, and he goes, no, just
Well, I mean, it's
absolutely not.
Balenciaga. You're paying for
So
the logo.
why a 13-year-old needs a Balenciaga hoodie,
Uh,
no one knows. But
I
so
don't
he said
know.
he'd buy him a 2-pack from Costco. So I like that. So money, is a deal. And I think that it's so funny because it's funny money, but it's funny because we work in fundraising, but we don't talk about money enough. Like, we talk about gifts, we talk about funds, we talk about all kinds of things, but
Talk about generosity.
are we really talking about money? Because we have to really think about that. Oh, Callie says her kids want a pink palm puff hoodie. They are not getting them. It's okay, Kelly. Necessity is the edge. So Colton and I, we did a survey, and thank you to every single one of you that participated in the survey about unspent funds. We promised to keep your information nice and confidential. So we haven't listed out your IP address and your, how much and everything like that. We haven't listed out your organization. We have not listed out whether your boss understands that you took the survey or not, so don't worry there. But we gathered some amazing information from you all, and we're here to share it. At the end of this session, one of the things we want to know is how we can best help you share this information with your leadership. Is it putting this PowerPoint in front of you? Is it presenting at conferences? Is it coming to your organization, not in the winter for me? He can go in the winter, and helping you talk through this. But this is I call it the scourge of unspent funds, but it really is a problem. And so many of us talk about it kind of in our quiet spaces at conferences or on webinars, but it really hasn't been brought into the light by any major professional associations or vendors yet, but we've got vendor partners that are going to help us. Got some real thought work, and now we finally have some data. Now, hopefully we'll be collecting some more data, but we've got to start here. So Colton's going to share a PowerPoint after this session. Of course, you'll always get the recording and the transcript and the PowerPoint as well. So Colton, it looks like I've got it up there, the issue.
Yep.
So many of you, oh wait, go back one. Many of you know I'm a fundraising nerd. And I have Google alerts set up for things like donor lawsuit and donor scandal, fun things like that. Well, there's lots of donor lawsuits out there. There's lots of organizations kind of being talked about in the news about donors being unhappy. Amos just made me giggle so hard. He said, we just started a what I call spend your bag cross-organizational work group. I'm
Great
here.
idea. We'll talk about that in just a
I would
minute.
call that the SYB. I would abbreviate that, but I love it. But this is what we're seeing in the news around donors and donation disputes. But what we're not seeing is information about what is happening. That X nonprofit raised a record-breaking 400 million, and it's sitting on a pile of money it hasn't spent. And Colton and I are at the front lines of this. We do fund, as many of you know, our firm does fund audits, but we're not here to advertise fund audits. But Colton and I were in with general counsel the other day for a wonderful organization that we're helping through this problem. And she said, you can't just sit there and hoard the money. That's how the government perceives it, that you're hoarding the money. And I'm like, ooh, she was very clear about it. But we believe firmly that this, not only is it a scourge, we are one good reporter away from this sweeping the nonprofit industry in terms of everybody brags about how much money they raise every year, but along with that should be a headline of, oh, and by the way, they have $100 million in unspent money. Nobody's talking about it. Thank goodness there's no reporters on this call. We've screened, right, Colton? We screened everybody.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. We screened them all out, because this is something that if it were to come into the light for some of our organizations would be quite damaging to our reputation and our ability to fundraise in the future. So that's something we need to keep in mind, right? So Colton, let's go to our next. Here's the thing though, many of us aren't able to measure it. So we're going to put up a poll. Colton and I created a lovely little poll for those of you who may not have taken the survey, or we'd love to see, do you know at your organization the amount of unspent donor funds?
Oh my gosh, a lot of it's complicated. I knew.
I can't see the results, so
I am watching it live, and I think
I
I gotta
love
end it
it.
and share it.
Oh, I
But
love
we
it.
are seeing lots of it's complicated responses. And
Mhm.
I want to get into why that is after I share the results.
I can't wait.
So
Get your votes in there, folks. We should have had an option that said, there's not enough wine in the world or Cheetos in the world, right? Yeah, I love this. Oh, my poll. Oh, look at this. So only 22% of us know the amount of unspent donor funds. 37, so 70% of you said it's either complicated or you don't know. And let me tell you why that's complicated and you don't know. Our systems don't talk to each other, right? Our systems don't talk to her. We have a fundraising database. We have a finance database. Some of us use FundDriver. Some of us use spreadsheets. Some of us use PeopleSoft, all kinds of things. And we have a recipient database. And there is no, until, just coming, we're just now forming databases where all three sources of that information is coming into one. And it's so interesting to me because, Colton, I don't know about you, but if you try to spend money that you don't have in your checking account, for example, what does the bank do? Say you go to spend $10,000 and you've got $7,000 in your bank account. What does the bank do? They say, no, sir, you cannot do that. And then they start
Decline.
sending you decline, and then they send you 8,000 alerts, right?
Right.
But in our finance systems at our nonprofits, if I over or underspend, there's no check and balance. There's no big red light going off saying you didn't spend this fund. And so it's really interesting how we bring in all this money and we're so grateful for that generosity, but we really don't have line of sight into or alert systems set up,
Right.
right? What is happening? And it's complicated. Watch this. So everybody type in ballpark, the number of total funds that are funded by donors at your nonprofit. How many funds do you have at your nonprofit? Right. Here they come. Brrr. Look at that. Look
A
at that.
lot.
I don't know. Too many, right?
Yeah.
Oh my God, too many.
Five. Did I see 5,000 scrolling?
15. I saw
10,000 plus?
15,000. 15,000. 15,000. 15,000 makes my skin itch. Caboodles. Oh, I like the caboodles idea. 600. Diana is precise. The woman knows she has 676. And if tomorrow somebody opens a new one, that will be 677. Just saying. I am here for precision. I am here. Amy's like, girl, I don't know. We big. We big. Yeah. I mean, just hundreds, thousands, even if you've got tens, it's a lot to keep up with, right? And so that might just be your endowed. It might not be your spend down or your restricted funds, right? Because it feels like every time a donor sneezes, we set up a new fund, right? Oh, that's the Gesundheit fund number one. Oh, Gesundheit fund number two. So one of the things that we have to do as an industry is start thinking about, we have to start measuring this, and we have to have some accountability around how we measure these funds and how we figure out the money that's in them. So Colton, hit that next slide for us, please. So we wanted to show you the survey data. We will provide this for you so that you can look, but these were the types of organizations that participated in the survey that we did. So again, we know that most of our base is higher ed. So we had healthcare, K through 12, so like our independent schools, and we had public and private higher ed, and we also had other nonprofits. Again, these are the folks that usually have large endowments, hundreds or thousands of funds. So we wanted to show you who your respondents were so you can find your peer groups. We can also filter through this. I'm not offering that for everyone who needs it, but if you see some commonalities and you'd like us to dig into the data, let us know. We also have separate slides for higher ed, right, Colton? We have a set.
Absolutely.
So then we asked not only what industry or what vertical you're in, but how many people are part of your development team? How many people work at your nonprofit? For those of you that work with 500 plus other people, whew,
A lot.
deep breath. People come and go and you don't even learn their name in time, right? But those big shops generate lots of funds. But you can see here, this is how many people work at the organization, right? Like this is how many people work at your organization. So we've got the type of organization, we've got how many folks work there. Now let's look at the funds, right? So Colton, walk us through this.
Absolutely. So this is explanatory on the number of funds, y'all, but look at that. Some folks have 10,000 or more funds. And I appreciate those folks that said, hey, I really don't know. And I encourage you, if you're in that boat, knowledge is power. So maybe that's the takeaway from today's webinar is you go and you figure out how many funds that are donor funded your organization has. So based on that, what we wanted to see is, was there a relationship between the dollar amount of total funds raised and the amount of unspent funds, right? Because we know that the more money you raise, the more unspent funds you're going to have. That's just a simple law of fund management. And we want to give us some grace there, right? So if you're one of these organizations that are pulling down 500 million a year, you're going to have unspent funds. And we'll talk about ratios in a minute. But as you can see, we got a wide variety here, but we got some big shops. 20% are raising 100 million or more. So we look at that, and then dun dun dun. This amount is the dollar amount of unspent donor funds. So, Lynn, if you help me here with my math, but we've got about a quarter, maybe a little less, that have more than 10 million in unspent funds.
And so everybody, let's take a deep breath, right? And also understand that if we were to total this up, right, you're talking hundreds of millions of dollars in donor funds, people who made gifts, who are sitting in our coffers, in our bank accounts, who had an intent, who had a purpose, that are being unspent. And we are, I always, one of our core tenets of DRG is integrity. We believe in telling you the truth. And I know that some of us know this, right? I know that some of us know some of these numbers. And unsure is a number two, because that just strikes at such a larger problem in our industry, right? So Heather says, does this include endowed gifts? This is any fund, Heather, endowed, restricted, that has unspent money. This is, the question is across the top of the slide, and these are the answers. So if you think about it, 5% of our audience has more than $100 million in unspent funds. That's a lot of money, folks. If that's 3 organizations, that's $300 million not going into the hands of beneficiaries, students, people who need that money. And also, if you think about every dollar here is a dollar that is coming from someone's pocket. So that means that behind every dollar is a donor who gave willingly, right? And who really said, I know that you need this, so I'm going to put my money where it went to good use. So Christy is asking a question. How are you determining unspent from operating funds, since some gifts are last 5 years? Yes. So Christy, when we have an endowed fund, they have a principal, or the bucket of money. So say I gave $100 million, and then every year that money throws off a return. And we usually spend 4 to 5% of that return every year, and the rest goes back into the principal or into the greater endowment. So unspent means I did not spend those returns, those allocated funds. In the case of a spend down fund, what it means to have unspent funds is I took in $100,000 for renovations over the last 5 years, and I've only spent $22,000 of that. Or I've spent none of it because the restrictions are too tight. So, and everyone defines unspent. So here's one of the challenges that Colton and I found as we started into this research is there is no industry-wide definition of a fund, of an endowed fund, of an fund. And so one of the things that we want to come out of this as an industry, and as people who are subject matter experts in the industry, is we want to start saying, here's what qualifies as an unspent fund. Here are some goals to do that, so that we can give the industry some of our learnings and some of our, so they can take it back and help fix these problems. Because right now there is no industry standard on the fundraising side. There's accounting standards, but none of them define what unspent money looks like or what it means. So I'd love to, as we pause to take a moment, I would love to hear it in an adjective. What are your responses to this screen? And we're going to continue on, but I'd love to hear, as you looked at this, were you surprised? Was this alarming? Did you anticipate this? Like, you see this, you're here, 200 of you on who care about this. What's been your reaction to this data? Bizarre. Reaffirmed. It's not just you. No. Anger.
Lasai.
Lasai. I do love Lasai. Frustrated.
Oddly reassuring.
Love that. Pained, evasive. Middle of the road. Sarah is shocked on behalf of all of the UK, right? Yeah, disappointed. Ashamed for the sector. We need to work hard to get the message out. You're right. It is interesting. That is a good word for it, Ruthie. It tracks but feels negligent. Yeah, it doesn't feel good. You don't feel good. A Lynn or a Lynn, we're gonna get there to where we amount versus org size versus how much to do, how much they raise. Diana, I love that you see that. It was rife with potential, right? And Stacy, you're right. We do need the finance and program people to hear this. And we are here. If you need us to present to your finance people, you let us know. Of course, that's a 2025 problem. That's my new phrase for the next week and a half. In 2025, yes.
We're going to circle back in the new year
We're
on
going to
that.
circle back in the new year. We can change that, Tiffany. I love that. We can change this. So we've showed you, she's forwarding the recording to finance. That's a great first step. Okay, so now let's look at the next step. We have pulled this out. So for those of you not in higher ed, sing yourself a tune, grab a snack. But we just wanted to show our higher ed segment what this looks like for them. So these are our average number of funds. So anywhere from, I would say the average higher ed place is going to have 500 to 2,500 funds. Bigger or smaller than that, okay, but that's where our data really lies, is in that sweet spot. So about 70% of you are in that. Okay, Nicole just found out she's got 2,100. There you go. Now, here is how much higher ed usually raises. So here's your average, how much higher ed is raising. And this was all higher ed. So public, private, community college, four-year university, Division I, doesn't matter. And then check this out. Here's your unspent. Whew. You know, Nicole, the fact that you struggle to find the number of funds is an issue, right? Yeah, Shannon just said, oof. Imagine if your campus newspaper got a hold of this. Imagine if your local newspaper got a hold of this when we're all in fundraising campaigns, we're all asking for more money, the cost of higher education is increasing, people can't afford to go to college, but we've got $10 million. So what we decided to do was take this data and work with it. We're working with it. And we said, how much, what is the percentage of your unspent funds versus how much did you fundraise, or your fundraising attainment, in the last year? So meaning your organization raised $400 million last year and you have $200 million sitting in unspent. That's a 50% ratio. Check this out, folks. Among higher ed, the average organization has 52% of their annual fundraising goal in unspent funds. I'm going to say that again. The average organization has 52% of their annual fundraising totals sitting in unspent funds.
So Lynn, does that mean if I was a frontline fundraiser, does that mean I wouldn't need to start my job until June?
Correct.
Or 6 months into the year, or whatever their
Correct.
fiscal year is?
Just chill out for 6 months because it's all just sitting there, unspent.
Now we know it's really not that way. We'll get there.
Now we know, but we're doing a little shock and awe here, but y'all are the ones that care about this, but you have to understand. So imagine you're the donor and Colton comes to you and he says, oh my gosh, we need $100,000 for this program. And, you know, and, you know, and I say, well, what did you do with my last 50,000? And Colton just looks at me, right? So Lori, this is our survey data. What our next step is, just to give you some perspective, is we're going out to vendors like fund driver, fund miner, awarded, and others who house financial information. And we're going to see if they can give us anonymized external source data. But right now, there is no external source data for this. So this is all people who self-reported. This is all self-reported data across a couple hundred nonprofits, again, with the vast majority of them being higher ed. So imagine if you said to your boss, yeah, we're in a $1 billion campaign, but we have half of that sitting in the bank unspent, right? And Tamika, my friend, hi, Tamika, is drilling down into why this is, right? How many funds are unable to be spent because of restricted memorandums? Oh, honey, that is what we're going to talk about too. And that is one of the solutions. And Lori, we don't like to self-report, but we tried to make this a safe space where it was as anonymous as possible. I would say the numbers are likely worse because there were people that didn't feel comfortable participating because they didn't know how the data was going to be used. But we try to always be protective of you all, but we also, y'all, we need to rattle leadership's cage. And I'm going to tell you why here in the next few slides. So Tamra, the 990s don't have this information. They don't have how much is spent out of the endowment. They have how much the endowment is. It's not all there for the world to see, unfortunately. The amount raised is there, but not the amount of unspent funds, because we have access to that information at scale, and you can't see it. So you can see how much the endowment is worth, but you can't see how much was spent. You could see cash, but you can't see investments and things. Otherwise, we would have a nice comprehensive report for you. And I know my friend Chelsea is like, I would already have that information. So, all right, Colton, let's move forward. So let's also think about what are our organizations doing to solve this problem. So Colton, what's your comfort? So we ask people how comfort, are you sleeping well at night? And the good news is that 80% of us are not sleeping well at night, right? Because we know the money's out there and we're sitting with it.
And Gina, I want to give that a thumbs up button, and we'll talk about that with budgeting models and our gift fund accountability. So Lynn, I'm going to jump in here. So we are very uncomfortable as an industry, and our leadership is generally aware. So this is a liker agreement. So look at that. So about, what is that, Lynn? 90% have awareness in general. For that less than 1%, oi, oi, oi. But in
And
general, this
here's what's
group is aware.
interesting. Here's what's interesting. We are aware, us doers, us donor relations professionals are aware, and we're uncomfortable. I know that there are many leaders who are aware and who are comfortable, and that's just the way it is. They are not losing sleep at night. And so one of our hopes out of this project, and we hope to get further data, and I don't know if any of you know this, but this is a bone of contention at DRG, is there's never been, for those of you in education, there's never been a single session on donor relations and stewardship at Case Summit, which is where all the VPs and AV, Case Summit is where all the leadership of education go together to fundraising leadership. There's never been a session. So we're hoping to break through that with this unspent funds issue. But we also know that there are leaders that are very aware of that. They don't want to deal with the issue. It's too complex. They're still raising money. No one's kind of caught them at it. I know, Chelsea, I want to change that too, but we have applied for like 17 years straight, I feel like, and haven't gotten anything in front of us. But they've never had a single stewardship or donor relations session. And so someone, I'm going to keep them anonymous, said, we're also making money off unspent funds. So to those of you that don't know the larger issue here, and we are not accusing anyone of anything. I don't have a good enough attorney to be sued by everyone, but I have a good enough attorney to be sued by some people. We are not accusing people of doing anything criminal, anything untoward, except I will tell you that if you do have money in unspent funds, you earn interest off of that money and the organization benefits. So there is no financial gain to spending unspent funds, which is why when we try to fix this sometimes with our finance departments, so my friend Sarah says I can say her name. So, but when we try to fix this with our finance department, sometimes they balk at fixing this because this is a large swath of cash that they can use. Now, I'm not accusing anybody's finance department of that. However, a lot of them get very comfortable in this
For
space
sure.
of unspent money. Slush fund land is real. And as people who come in and clean it up, we've seen that. And so Emma is working on her EDD, and this is her topic. So
Congrats, Dr. Emma.
I know, Dr. Emma, there is not much literature, but we are hoping to provide literature. That's one of the things. The 4 pillars of fund management is something that my friend Chelsea and I are going to start working on writing, so that we can start dealing with this. And Andrea, to your point, budgetary headwinds are changing that. You know what really brought this to bear for a lot of us is when the pandemic hit. People said, well, they're large, rich organizations. They have these big endowments. Why can't they just tap into their endowments? Why do they need to take public money from the government? Well, because endowments are 98% restricted. That's why. And so it is the time. Andrea, to your point, I hear a lot from faculty and docs and administrators. We're saving this money for a rainy day. And I'm like, it is pouring, people. It is pouring. Donors, I don't know that we ever solicited money for a rainy day fund at any nonprofit I've ever worked with. So
I've not seen that solicitation go out.
yeah, yeah, haven't seen that solicitation go out. So we're aware, and it makes us sick to our stomach. Our leadership is aware. We don't know how they feel yet, but honestly, I've run this business for 15 years, and a lot of leaders don't come to me begging me for this. But when I do it, when we work with them, when we explain the problem, they really do start to show up. I don't think people are bad. I think they don't know how to fix the problem. So we asked, what phase are you in at your organization, right? What phase are you in when it comes to your organization? Only 26% of us are in an action phase. Like we're addressing it, we've got a plan, we're on it, right? We're on it. The vast majority of us are thinking about it. We're in the assessment phase. So if you've done a fund audit, great. If you haven't, let us know. We're here to help. We're going to give you resources. But the vast majority of us are planning. So, and y'all know we have to plan forever, or we don't have any action plans because our leadership has said it's not important, or we've got other things to do, or we're busy, with other jobs. And so this is a challenge because, again, I think by the time this were to hit the news, or by the time this became an issue, because like we have an organization right now where it became an issue, and now it's taking us 18 months to do the research, to do the fixing, to do that. So Gina said they've been sending quarterly reports to deans and VPs, and more spending is occurring on the endowment side, but not on the cash side.
And
So
isn't that interesting, Lynn? That's about as similar as when you go to a dean, what do they tell you they want? Unrestricted funds. What does a dean want? Cash expendable funds, but yet they're not spending it.
not spending it.
Hmm.
They're not spending it. Yes.
Hmm.
The irony is not lost on us, right? So the irony is not lost on us. So we're in varying state. I would say the vast majority of us don't have a plan and have unspent funds. Our leadership is aware. So if I were to take, like, Colton, what are the big buckets that we can say? We can say people know they have unspent funds. Their
Right,
leadership know they have unspent funds. They are trying to act,
right.
they have a plan, or they want to do something about it because they're uncomfortable. But we as an industry are not locked tight in this. And if you do, for those of you that do have wonderful fund management and compliance, fantastic. Share that with the rest of the world. Compliance is the hottest job in donor relations right now. We're going to talk about, is this donor relations problem, question mark, in a few slides, right? So I love that, Lori, they're starting to require, but look at this awareness and action here. right? Am I aware and are we doing something about it, right? And so it's really interesting the correlation between awareness and action. Also, I don't know if you guys have ever tried to move finance as a department or, do things at big organizations. It's a lot of work. We've been working on unspent funds at a certain university for 4 years, and it took us the first year to raise awareness and get everybody to agree that we need to do something about it. That took a whole year. So again, it's like moving an aircraft carrier. It's totally like moving an aircraft carrier, but we can do this. It's just, we've got to keep at it. So yeah, let's go to the next slide. So how many, I would love to hear if at your organization, do you have an office that is responsible for this? Okay, Carolyn's 9 years in. Girl, keep it up. Keep it up. You can do that. Do you have an office of compliance or an office whose responsibility it is to manage unspent money? Stacy's got one at her organization, or either. Okay. Okay, some of you do, some of you don't. In my dreams, okay. Yes-ish.
It's Heather.
Yes-ish.
Heather says,
It's
me.
me. Hit me. Hit me.
Jen said,
It
oh,
was
Amanda.
eliminated. Of course it was. I love that, Gina. You're getting there. Nope, just stewardship. And of course, we know for those of us who do stewardship and reporting, one is the scourge of unspent funds. How am I supposed to report on that if we didn't spend the money? Like, what is my reporting going to say, right? Like, oh, it looks good in the bank account. We haven't touched it, but I noticed it over there. It's like when you go to Vegas and you see the big jackpots at the top of the machine and you're like, it's in there. That jackpot is in there, right? I just needed to come out. The number of impact report issues this gives you. Yes, there's nothing to report on. So for most organizations, go back a little bit. Sorry, Colton. There is no compliance office and there's no real industry agreement as to where this lives. So I'm going to say this to you. I think that we have mostly donor relations and compliance and fund managers on. If it is not our responsibility, then whose is it? Because the first part of stewardship, so if we go to the 4 pillars of donor relations, a little book I wrote a while ago, stewardship includes spending the money according to donor intent. And I understand that monitoring that might be a finance function. But if we don't know that the money is spent, then how do we report impact back to donors? So I'm going to advocate as an industry that we have compliance positions that live in donor relations and stewardship. I'm not advocating that your current donor relations and stewardship office just take on this extra work with extra resources. You need software, you need human being time. Like these are huge projects. That's not to get you down or down at the mouth about this, and it should be a collaboration, right? It should be a collaboration. My thing is, I don't care where this lives, but somebody's got to own it. Part of the reason that we are in the problem that we're in as an industry is because nobody owns this situation. Our professional association hasn't said, hey, we need to manage funds. Our leadership, there's no governing body that even says this is an issue yet, right? So again, one of the things we need to do is figure that out, whose responsibility, and then we need to go ask for the resources. So Jen says, I've been trying to find software solutions to allow me to track fund utilization, but keep running into a wall. There's software out there, and I have even invited some of our software and tech partners onto this webinar. I'm going to ask them to stay anonymous, and I'm going to keep them anonymous, but we believe in tech partnership, And we believe that tech is part of the solution to this. So Jen, if you want to reach out to me independently, I just don't want, this isn't a commercial, right? This is us discussing an issue as a community. And then we will talk about those that are here to help us solve this. But there are people working on it and they're doing a really great job. So I want to lift up those that are working on it, but also want to keep this a safe community where we can discuss our issues and not think that people are making money off of it all, right? But we do need software. We also need human being resources. You know, when we're called in to do fund audits, oftentimes it's because other people can't take this on. I mean, Colton, the most recent one we did was 100 and some odd hours worth of work.
Oh,
Most staff can't absorb that.
at
They just
least.
can't. They just can't do that, and nor should they be expected to. I always say when we do fund audits, if we find $1 million of spendable money, we just paid for our fees and then some. So you just take the change column. So the responsibility varies, but someone needs to own it, right? Yes, Sharon, there's software that goes beyond scholarships to restricted, programmatic, everything. Yep. Email us at info and we can help you there. Okay, let's go to the next section, Colton. How do we address the issue? Well, we at DRG have been successful in addressing the issue with many of our client partners. And so we want to give you what we think are some of the ways to do this. And it might not be what you think. So the first is creating thresholds of what percent of unspent fund is okay. Like, I very rarely see a fund spent 100%. It might have, $200 left in it or $12 left in it. What is tolerable? What is your risk tolerance towards unspent fund? Find out what your cumulative balances are and consider funds that really, like, how many years without expenditures. So if you have a fund that's gone 6 years without being expended, that's an issue, right? So it may not be a dollar amount issue. It may be a we haven't spent this in 6 years issue, right? So we really want to think through that. And so I want to be conscientious there that it can vary. And so yes. So the next thing is, really thinking about on our next slide. So we've got our thresholds. We need a task force, as our friend says, spend the bag. Now that you've secured the bag, we need a task force. I dare say not a committee, but this needs to be a group of working people, someone from finance, someone from financial aid or beneficiary program support, someone from donor relations, and they need to have the bandwidth to take this on. I will tell you that so many of these get stalled out because it's a side project. It's a back burner thing. I don't know about y'all, but I am not sitting around waiting for back burners. Do you know what I mean? So we need to be mindful that these folks need to have the bandwidth, or hire a contractor, hire a project manager, right? Like, hire someone that can do this on a temp basis. So Colton, at GW, they've hired a term position, right, for 2 years
Absolutely. Yep.
to address
And
the
I
issue.
believe she's on the call, so
Oh,
she told
fantastic.
me she'd be joining. Yep.
I love that. But they've said we're going to put resources towards this. There's Shannon. We're going to put resources towards this. And so they put a human being on it. Shannon, boom. And she's going to help. But just talking about it, right? Oh, tiger teams. I love it. Meow, meow. Ooh, like Tiger King. Meow, meow. Tiger teams. I love that. So again, someone has to own this. Gift informants. Oh my God, I feel like I'm working with the DEA. I am here for it, Lataya. I am here for it. Okay, keep going, Colton, so we can get to everybody's questions. So you need to address the balances. You need to identify problem funds. Now, my friend Tamika pointed it out. Half of the reason that these funds are unspent is because the root cause is a gift agreement issue. We agreed to a gift we could never spend, or we allowed a donor to say that they wanted a one-legged redheaded swimmer born in Omaha, Nebraska under a full moon in April to receive their scholarship. Or we collected money for a piece of equipment and never told the donor that it was going to take us that long. Or we got rid of the home economics department and forgot to change the funds over. Or the fund never reached the minimum, right? Your
Or Lynn, the lectures, y'all, lecture funds, my
lecture
least
fund.
favorite funds, because guess what? The spinoff doesn't cover the full lecture, so let's not spend any
Oh,
of it. No.
lecture funds. Lecture funds are the bane of our existence in fund audit land because they generate exactly $250. And I don't know about y'all, but you can't even get a hotel in a decent city for
Had
$250.
to interject. Sorry about that. That was
Yes,
my whew,
no.
hot in the
And
mind.
as a lecturer myself, as a speaker, I am barely showing up in my backyard for 500. So do you know what I mean? And that's not, you're telling me you're going to get a world-class lecturer for $800 a semester. It ain't happening.
Whew. Anyway.
Whew. And awards and prizes, after
Oh
graduation
my
prizes.
gosh.
Oh my gosh. I can't. We could all go on. So we also have to understand that just spending the money is not good enough. You can go out there and spend all the unspent funds you have. You'll have some very wealthy departments, but you will not fix the problem. You actually have to address the root cause. And what the root cause is lack of clarity, illegal, impossible, or impractical gift criteria. What we have done is we have set it up to be donor driven, not donor centered. We are just taking orders like we are at a diner and the donor says, I want an omelet with this, this, and this in it. And we make them an omelet. And it does not prioritize our actual needs. We also have fundraisers who are so desperate to make gold that they accept any gift that comes in the door and don't think that forever is a very long time. Or as my friends would say, forever, ever? Forever, ever. That's an Outcast quote for those of you who don't speak 90s hip hop the way I do. Forever, ever, forever, ever. And so we actually have to fix the root of the problem. So that means we have to go and create gift agreement guidelines. No, we're not going to accept a lecture fund anymore for this. No, we're not going to start creating honor and memorial funds for $5,000. And so we at DRG do a lot of education. So we are rolling out new training for budget spenders, but we're also rolling out new training for fundraisers, how to say no to a donor. So in New York City in October, right, Colton, we are co-hosting training with Kathy Drucker Duff for donor relations person and their frontline fundraisers to come together and go to our training together so that we can get them to stop saying yes to silly gifts, right? Stop saying yes. Like Colton literally wrote a report on lungless salamanders because somebody accepted a gift about lungless salamanders research, really. But
They're
anyway,
a keystone species, Lynn.
of course, they're a keystone species, the lungless salamander. And so we need to educate our fundraisers on how to say no to donors and how to be donor centered, not donor driven. So we're running a lot of those programs. If you need that kind of training, we are really good at it. We're also good at rewriting your guidelines about what you can and can't accept. So if you need that, remember, it starts with when we tell the donors exactly, Hader, show me the incentives, I'll show you the outcomes. We have to start with donor. Oh, I love that Marlene turned down $100,000 gift for a donor to buy their own books. I'm here for that. I'm going to start funding my own.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's interesting.
We have to start at the front line. We have to stop accepting. So yes, we have to fix the unspent problem. We also have to stop accepting gifts that are destined to be unspent funds. Unspent funds start with the gift, right? And so with the donor, setting expectations, really thinking about what it means to accept money. And a lot of that is education based. So we work with academics, you have budget managers, right? Who could be everything from the provost or the hospital CEO all the way to the administrative assistant in the archaeology department or the woman who takes the punch cards in the pediatric cancer unit, right? And so we have to educate at all levels what it means gift goes unspent, right? Okay, so Kristen's IDing her budget managers. And here's the thing, Kristen, we have to make accountability there. So at one organization that we work with, we have them sign a document that says, I understand I am responsible for these funds. I understand what they're supposed to be spent on. And as part of my performance review, they will be spent. So, we have to put that in.
Oh, Kelly, I remember this example. My friend
Me
from
too.
Kelly at IIT. Yep.
IIT. And I can't wait. We're coming back to Chicago. And I think we're doing fund management in Chicago, aren't we, Colton?
I believe that was on the docket.
So our conferences for 2025 are coming out this Friday, and we're going to Chicago, Denver, London, and New York. And so in Chicago, we're covering fund management. In New York, we're doing training for our frontline fundraisers on this. Again, we're trying to meet your needs around these issues. So we have to address the root cause. So what all this data means, again, is exactly, Emily, we don't know who the transition is. So again, there's another data source for us.
For
It's
sure.
who's responsible for spending this money.
That's right under that fund
An
administrator
administrator.
consolidation.
Yeah,
Less cooks in the kitchen equals less hazard, right?
exactly. And wouldn't it be nice, Emily, if when a fund administrator turned over, you got an alert so that you could go meet with them and
Bing.
educate them? Well, this is possible. So we are hopeful to start 2025 is the year of the unspent fund. I've declared it. It's happening. Like we just need to get it in front of leadership. So here's our thoughts. So we want to bring more data to bear, right? We also want to give you this information so that you can put it in the hands of your leadership, your coworkers, your teammates. So you're going to get the recording and the slides. But I would love to know from all of you what would be, and Colton, we can stop the
Yep.
slidey thingy, and what would be most helpful for us as a company to produce for you to help you make the case. Hopefully some of you are already doing fund audits. You're already knee deep in the manure. Yes, lots of staff. Yep, we have samples of the budget manager fund administration agreements. But what data, how should we take this to the next level? As many of you know, every other year we do the pulse survey. We've been doing that for 10 years. Elizabeth says she has no stick and no carrot. Do you know what I mean? So she doesn't have any authority over those spending the funds. And that is a huge issue, Elizabeth. What kind of information do you need to take action? How can we help you as thought leaders in this space? Do we do a spring webinar together where you invite your finance people or your, fundraising leadership, right? Yeah, feel free to drop your questions in the chat, right? Yeah, we're not unmuting because Zoom unmuting gets dangerous. What do we mean by a fund manager? Objects to putting spending as part of the fund manager's. Oh, so then the dean in my world would be the one signing that release. If the dean is going to take accountability and say that they are not going to hold people accountable, then they have to sign the release saying that they're responsible. Because here's the other thing, for those of you listening from the United States, and there's a law that governs this, and anyone who has unspent funds for more than 18 months is in violation of that law. UPMIFA, adopted in every state except for Pennsylvania, they have their own, says that you have the legal requirement to spend funds and spend them prudently and in a timely manner. And when court cases have come about, the timely manner has been 18 months. So if you don't spend it in 18 months, the donor has the right to sue the organization and get their funds back for non-prudent spending. So there are legal ramifications, right, to this. There are ethical ramifications. Why are we, having these massive UPMIFA? We can type, here we go, UPMIFA. We can have these massive fundraising campaigns, but then we're not spending the money. So again, I really want us to be mindful that there are like just horrible ramifications for this. And we really need to be mindful about that. So, okay, so Hader says we need longer term data. Okay. The case law. Yes, I can, Michaela. I can dig that out. I have a bunch of it. Fast fact page. Ooh, oh, like a one pager, Coco. Oh, sorry, Colton. With the facts. Tell us what you need resources wise. We want to produce resources you can use because not everybody's going to listen to an hour-long webinar of me and Colton jawing at ourselves. So, what resources do you need? What information would be helpful? And you can always email us at info at. Yes, Carolyn, there are in real life examples about where this issue. So I keep a Dropbox folder of all the donor lawsuits. And so thanks, Ronald. Thanks for visiting us. Have a great end of the year. A list of repercussions. Okay. A scary folder. I do keep a scary folder. Yes. Yes. Training on budget models and ethics. Okay. So we can speak their language. Oh, Tiffany, you're doing a fund audit. Always do the biggest pot of money first, not the oldest first, because there are laws that let you out of old funds very easily. So you want to start with active donors with large funds first. That's how we filter our funnel. Small dead donors, we get to them last. Unfortunately, they don't complain a lot, but their families do. I mean, there's case law. Everybody knows about the Princeton issue, the Robertson lawsuit, right? Okay. Resources required to do it. Okay. Okay. So the data plus some legal information. Okay. Sounds good. This is very helpful to us because again, we only want to do things that are going to benefit you all. We probably are also going to, Colton, I know you're submitting to ADRP for a session at their conference in Montreal. We're doing conferences on this topic. Diana says, having a standard roadmap of identifying the gift. Oh, the process. I love that. She goes, there should be one standard way. We all should do it. Then vibe on it. Vibe on it, Diana. I can vibe on that. I'm here for vibing. There should be an industry standard. And maybe
sure.
since folks aren't setting it, we just set it and say, it is hereby decreed.
Right.
I mean, I did create the 4 pillars of donor relations, and that's now an industry standard, right? So I guess we're going to decree some things. Okay, recording the trainings for new gift managers, make it an onboarding requirement. Yeah, that'll be institution by institution. That's really good. That's really good. Okay. Are there things that we're missing? Like what data that are we missing? What people are we missing? Carolyn, you're right. There's higher priorities until you end up in the news that says you raised $200 million last year and 150 million of it sits in unspent. Yeah, unfortunately, I think we're going to have somebody get really embarrassed for this to come to fold. Ooh, how many places have a documented process of how to spend it, how to do all this on small budgets? And Emily, it's not necessarily how much money you have.
Right.
It's resource, it's time, it's human being time. It's human being time. It's so interesting. So Emily, I was working with, and Gina's on here, my friend at Queens, and they had a low fund for like just a spend down fund was like $2,500. And I tracked all the administration of the fund, and it actually cost them like $1,800 in staff salary and time just to open a new fund. So every time a donor gave them $2,500, they lost 1,800 of that just administering the fund and all the rigmarole that went with it. So they were able to raise their minimum in a big way, right? So that was, yeah, you can work with us on this. We'll take volunteers. How did I get that data and what did it cost in staff time? Well, Michaela, they hired us as consultants to figure out their problem. I did an Excel formula of how many people touched the fund and how long was the average touching, what was their salary. I took their salaries, divided out into an hourly rate, and did a big, massive Excel formula. All in all, it probably took me 8 to 10 hours of work as a consultant. And yeah, it worked. So helped them make a lot of proof, that's for sure. So yeah, this process addressing unspent funds takes a long time. Is there a
Does.
better way to communicate unspent funds to donors?
Hmm.
Ooh,
We can maybe get like a kit or something together, Lynn. I think that
yeah,
could be a good
that's
resource.
great. Well, you guys have been awesome. I love laws. That's why I say the IRS and up. Okay. You guys are great. Thank you to Colton for really, he's been my data guy. Thank you for caring. Thank you for trusting us with your information. We hope you at least got one helpful nugget out of this. Like I said, this is something that we're really dedicated to. Like, oh, all the positive affirmation means a lot to us when we think, we want to crack this nut too. And so whatever we can do to help, and we have some friends in industry that are going to help us too in the data and the tech world. So we are so grateful to all of you. And if we don't get to see you, have a great holiday and make that be a 2025 problem, people,
Take
because
good care.
we'll circle around. Thanks, Colton.
Hey, thank you, Lynn. Bye-bye.